Just gonna put this out there, you can get everything that this movie sets out to do and more just by watching the opening scene alone from Pixar's Up. Just a thought. Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. Today we are talking about Here, directed by Robert Zemeckis, a director who has kind of been forgotten about in Hollywood. I mean, he's made some of the most famous films of all time, from Forrest Gump to Back to the Future. Castaway is an underrated gem in that line, if you ask me. And this is a project that I've been interested in from day one because it actually tries something different that I haven't seen many other films do before. And I can always respect a director taking a stab at something innovative and creative rather than, you know, a run-of-the-mill story. And the story of Here is not really about a certain person or even a group of people. It's instead about a house and the land that house was built on, and we follow the chronicles of ongoing time as it passes, and we see all the different occupants and inhabitants that lived on this land and what their lives were like. And if you want to be technical, this movie actually does cover millions of years of time in this one small place. The camera does not move. There's only one camera motion in the entire film, which is a cool idea. It's a gimmick for sure, and one that could easily fall flat on its face, or be something that enhances the story that we're getting. And this is definitely one of those cases in which I think the idea sounds better on paper than it does in execution, at least in this level of execution. I think there could have been a genuinely great film here, but that's not what we got. I still think the idea is worthy of praise because at least, once again, you're trying something new. And I like the transitions. The scene transitions often start with one little square in the middle of the screen that gradually fades into a different time period to show new characters. I like that. And because many of the characters are being followed through their entire lifespans, there is a lot of de-aging, particularly with Tom Hanks and Robin Wright. And it looks really good. I don't know what the budget of this film was, but I was shocked by how little I noticed the de-aged Tom Hanks in particular. I suppose it's probably a bit easier when the camera isn't moving at all, but that's neither here nor there. It certainly is more ambitious than I was expecting. I didn't think I'd be seeing dinosaurs, the Ice Age, or Ben Franklin. And I think this brings me to one of my first big issues with the film that could have easily been fixed, could have trimmed down the runtime and improved the focus, the cohesion, if they would have just cut out some of the side plots that don't need to be there, that don't add much to the story, because I really found myself only invested in a few of the storylines, especially when it jumps around in time so much. And there's no chronology to it. It just kind of moves around between time periods as it pleases. And because of that, you feel like you're kind of just jumping back and forth and you don't have time to settle with the emotions of the previous scene. And maybe this is just me, but I had trouble keeping the characters and the time periods straight. There are obviously clues strewn throughout in terms of the set designs, the clothing, and just the conversations that the characters have. There are clues planted in there to remind you what time period you're in. But it jumps around so much. Some of these scenes are like just a minute long, and then all of a sudden you're in a different century. I guess you could say the main plot line follows Tom Hanks and Robin Wright as they fall in love and start a family, and it actually starts with his parents, played by Paul Bettany and Kelly Riley. But there are so many subplots that I'm not even going to start to scratch the surface of them. There's one in which we follow a character who, I guess, invented the lazy boy reclining chair. There's another one about a pilot who's obsessed with aviation, meanwhile his wife is horrified by it. And it's little chapters like these that just feel so out of place when we suddenly transition to them, and then as the movie goes along, you start to wonder why they even matter at all. And the other problem with this motionless camera gimmick is that I feel that the movie kind of did back itself into a corner by staging the camera in the living room of all places. There are scenes which are very short in and of themselves that end super abruptly simply because the characters leave the living room and the camera can't follow them. So while it wants to be this deep piece of reflection for the characters, I feel like there's so much of their lives that were left out of that as an audience member, I just couldn't connect with them the way I wanted to. And there's so many characters, I genuinely struggled to remember even like 2 or 3 of their names. And I get the point, right? It's a slice of life story that's less about narrative cohesion and more about giving you that sentimental feeling that you get when you return to a place that holds a lot of memories. And Here is definitely trying to highlight the joy, sadness, laughter, heartbreak, all of these complicated emotions that allow us to create memories in our spaces. Unfortunately, it's just one of those films that feels more like an experiment than something that works from a storytelling perspective. And there certainly are tender moments, I won't lie to you, of course there are, but they do not come together as a meaningful whole. But I will say, even though I didn't like the film much myself, I am surprised by the aggressively negative critical reception. It's not terrible, it's not a terrible film at all. And regardless of your age, if you have parents around, this is probably a movie that they will enjoy much more than you. If you've lived a relatively long life or created a family in an environment that just feels like home, then yeah, you might connect to this movie more than I did. Granted, I think I see exactly what it was trying to do, and it just didn't quite come across for me. So I'm going to give Here 2.5 stars. It falls into mediocrity, which makes me sad because, again, I like the concept, but this needed some serious work before it could truly be what it wants to be. As always, be sure to hit that like button and subscribe before you head out, and drop down in the comments if you have seen Here and let me know what you think of it, and what's your favorite Robert Zemeckis film. Until next time, guys, cheers.